Hey, how you doing, everybody? Well, today is a little bit of a different build once again. I've got one of my dials here, and I have picked up well, it's a knockoff, actually. Looks pretty damn good for being a knockoff. I mean, that Côte de Genève on the balance wheel on the rotor there is pretty decent, and you can see it's actually branded ETA, but it is not. This is a Chinese clone. I grabbed one of these for pretty good price. I figured, well, I'm gonna play with it just to see. You know, I've been kind of curious. But anyway, this is just messing around day. Here are the accoutrements for 2824 movement. You get a dial spacer ring, which is what this is here, and you get some screws, some tabs for holding down the movement into the case, and you also get a little washer for the center pinion. Here's the little washer I was talking about. It's very similar to a washer you get with an NH34. It's basically just another dial spacer washer, but you put that on so it looks like, you know, you put it hard to explain how you put it so it looks like a U. If you put it so it looks like a frown, you got it upside down. So frown, upside down. So what I'm doing now is more or less just a bit of a test fit, trying to gauge just how much of the date wheel window on the dial I'm going to have to file down, because the date wheel on a 2824 dial like this, a movement, and basically a dial that's designed for an NH35, the date wheels don't line up. They're off just a hair, but it's enough that you notice it if you don't do anything about it. So this is a bit of an experiment more than anything. Now, to secure this dial, since the dial feet are not going to line up, I am going to have to use dial dots, which not the greatest, but gets the job done if you do it right. What I've done is I've put the dial dots on the dial spacer ring and kind of wrapped it around and tucked it underneath, so it's not going to be in the way of anything, but it's going to securely hold the dial and securely hold the dial down to the movement as well, the way it should. And now I'm going to measure the date window aperture here, just to give myself an idea where we're at and how much I need to take off for that. It's not going to be a whole lot. It's going to be a lot less than you might think. About 0.5 millimeter should be plenty. I do have this square diamond file that is going to work, but it wound up taking a long damn time because I can only move it back about 1 millimeter at a time. But got the job done, shaved off about about 0.5 millimeter, And it's not the prettiest, I will say that. Like I say, this isn't the best dial anyway. It's a prototype dial. It's not perfect. It has imperfections. So I like to play with these ones and come up with new designs and fart around and see what I can do. But like I say, the hole isn't perfect, but you're not going to see it unless you get out your loop and look real close. And this isn't going anywhere. This is for me anyway. This is playing around, designing, checking stuff out. You know what time it is. Time to set some hands. Straightforward, the usual biz. Alright, hand set, happy with everything there. Time to get this thing cased up. So, edumacation time. Everybody quiet, everybody listen. When removing a stem from a 2824 ETA movement or the Salida SW200, the position of the crown is different. You have to have it in the third position. Otherwise, you run the chance of messing up the keyless works. Just the way it is. Alright, now we have this little spacer ring for this case. And I typically find it easier to get the spacer ring onto the movement before casing it up. It tends to sit a little bit better in the case, I find sometimes. Sometimes. You know how that goes. But today we're looking Gouda. I'm happy with that. It just needs to be pressed down a little bit. Just the edges of the movement ring were sticking up a little. And then this happened. I couldn't tell what was going on at first because I couldn't see where it had come from, but a little gasket had just appeared on the stem. And I wasn't sure if it was out of the crown or out of the case, but I figured out it was definitely out of the case. So these little guys, those little gaskets are, they're not that bad to work with, but sometimes they can be a pain in the rear end. You just gotta kind of squish it in there with your finger a little bit and then get it in there with the tweezers. You're looking good. Next up, insert the crown, and away we go. Pro tip: when reinserting the crown into these movements, quite often it really helps if you push the button down, the clutch button down, while pushing the crown in. It just works better. And here we are. Now, I've had this case for a while. I like the case. The only thing I didn't like about it was the single dome sapphire on it. I don't know. It's just a bit too much domage for me. But somehow with this style, that's not that bad. I don't mind it terribly. But needed to use the case for something, and I figured this was the perfect way to use it. But I was really curious about these movements, so I slapped it on the old Timegrapher here, and was actually kind of surprised. You know, it's not perfect by no means, but I didn't expect it to be. But it was running better than I expected, I have to say. And I can always dial it in a little bit better anyhow, so not a big deal. Very surprising. Very noisy movement, but I'm not sure if that's the movement or the case. I don't know, maybe it's echoing in the case. Shit, I don't know about these things that much. I'll figure it out. I will get it sorted. Either way, kind of liking it. I don't mind that. Pretty cool. You guys gotta let me know what you think. Tell me what you think. It's a hell of a dome on there. Like, look at that. Dome edge. Anyway, cheers you guys. Love y'all. Come on back again.